is Teresa Pastore, and I'm Executive Director of Parents Engaged in Education. Tonight is the second of our Facebook Live sessions. We are going to do a series of these sessions to offer some advice to school councils, some skill building opportunities, and in future we're going to look at doing events on student mental health, on technology, and other topics which we can get experts to share their information with you. Tonight we're talking about programs. This is the time of year in Ontario where the government offers an opportunity for school councils and regional groups to prepare and submit a program, Parent Reaching Out Grant. So tonight, to talk about this with us, I have Lisa Landreau, who's the Vice President of Parents Engaged in Education, Liz Garcia, who's a member of our organization, and behind the camera and manning our Facebook Live stream is Adrian Marmaro, and he's our Chief Digital Officer and Director. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the terms and conditions of programs, but what we really want to share with you is ideas on grants and also school partnerships for programs. That's a topic very near and dear to my heart. So I thought we'd start with what is going to be the consideration, the main considerations for the government to look at your application. So every year they set out a number of things they consider priority for these grants. Last year, math topped the list. This year, it's number 3. Number 1 is to support and engage those parents who have not got involved or don't understand the need for parent engagement in your community. The hard to reach parents who need to support their children at home and at school. They're also going to be looking at priorities for people engaging in Indigenous communities, and then helping parents understand and be involved to support their children in math, and to promote the value and information about post-secondary education. So they are the main highlights of what the ministry is going to be looking for this year. I won't go through all the terms and conditions of the grant because they're numerous. What I'd suggest you do is go to the Ministry of Education Parent Reaching Out Grants. And when you go on that link, you'll get all the information that you need to write your grant. The main thing is that projects must focus on informing and engaging parents to improve student achievement, physical or mental health. That's the purpose of the grant. It is not to engage students. They are other funding areas. This is to engage parents to support their children. We know that the research says that the single biggest factor and influence in students' achievement, besides what they learn in school, is parent engagement. And that's why the ministry decided to offer these grants, so that schools have money, which has not been raised through fundraising, which should go back to the students and not come to the parents, but that's why they have a certain amount of funding for parents and the opportunity to write these grants. So a couple things I do want to tell you about is, one, there are funding restrictions. So only your $1,000 grant for school councils, only 20% of that can be spent on refreshments. So the max you can spend on a $1,000 grant is $200. But if you write a grant for $500 or $750, that amount reduces in accordance with the percentage of your total grant. And the second thing in terms of limitation is the advertising expense. That's limited to 10% of the total grant. So the main exclusions, but there are many, and again, I refer you back to the ministry website where they have everything, is it can't be a fundraising activity. So you cannot use the grant money to run a fundraiser. You can't do a community barbecue or fun fair with the money. You can't pay board staff or give board staff an honorarium. You could hire a speaker, a professional speaker outside your board, but if board staff are doing it, you cannot pay them to do it. They would have to do it volunteer. Purchase anything that the minister already pays for, textbooks, anything to do with that, and curriculum is not paid for through the grant. That's similar to when you raise money through fundraising. You can't spend on those items. So there, like I said, there's many other things. So I encourage you to, before you prepare your grant, to go through and look at all those things. So tonight, I think that we're going to bring some questions to you about writing your grant that we've encountered as we've prepared grants. I've done grants at the school council level, at the regional level, and at the provincial level. And so I know a little bit about each of them. So I'm going to ask Liz and Lisa if they have, some of the questions that come to them as part of a school council, and see if we can provide some answers tonight. We also invite you to submit questions on Facebook, and Adrian will be feeding them to us to answer live. So you had a good question just before we started.
Yeah, so who is responsible for doing the application or for getting the ideas together for the program?
So it's a school council program, and that's something that sometimes gets skewed. This is a school council program. As a matter of fact, when you go into the ministry and you look at guidelines, you will see that it must be approved through the motion of the school council. So not only do they have to do the work, it has to be approved by their council.
Okay.
So it isn't enough to say, well, we could do this or we could do that, and then somebody writes it up and sends it in. It's not that. You must have a vote of your council. And the other thing, when I did this presentation to the Peel District last week, we talked about is that you have to know that grants go in May, well, June 5th now, but that may not be the same council that will ultimately put on the grant project. So it's really important when you have these discussions about who will do it, that you say who will be here, plans to be here next year, that will be on the program committee to see that the event we've planned for comes to fruition. Because I can't tell you the number of people who apply for a grant, say on mental health, they know who they would ask to do it and all that. Then it comes to the next year, they're no longer there. And that people go, I don't want to do one on that. I don't know anything about that. I don't know who I would call. I don't know. And the grant never gets done. So one thing you should know, and this is really important for everyone to understand, if you don't complete your grant, the money goes back to the ministry. It does not go back to parent engagement. It goes back to the general fund of the government. So that's a lost funding and opportunity for parent engagement. So I really want to encourage everyone to complete a grant and to have a plan to put it into place in the new school year. Because that money, if you don't do it, and there are hundreds around the province who don't do it, that money is just lost. It goes back into the government. It's not even assigned for education. So it's imperative that we complete these projects, even the regional people. If you get, if we applied for a grant and we got $10,000, we should make sure our plan meets our budget, because if we don't, the money's just going to go back, and it's going to go back to the fund. It's not, it's nothing to do with parent engagement. So we really have to protect that money, because it won't come back. The next year, it's not like the pot increases. So, Lisa, did you have any questions about the grant?
Just some comments. I know when we put on grants, sometimes you try to get a speaker, and some of the popular speakers book up a year in advance. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to book a speaker who is hard to pin down with a date, you almost want to tentatively book them now.
Yes.
And then apply, still apply for the grant, but book them now, because it's already April. So they'll be booking up for April next year, some of them. And if you wait much longer or until the grant is approved, you'll miss out.
You might
on
not
that
get
speaker. You should also have a backup speaker just in case something
Mhm.
comes up. Some of the high-profile speakers cost quite a bit for their speaking fee, and so you'll find that the $200 that you said for your average $1,000 grant, the $200 for refreshments, they may not be able to use that all. So you have to look at that too when you're budgeting. That sometimes the speaker fee is higher than you want to put out, but some schools offer a parent involvement grant of some sort, some school boards, and so you may want to use some of that funding if that's available to you to apply to your big event.
And everybody gets a $500 base parent engagement fund from the ministry. So you may want to use a bit of that. If you have someone who runs a program for the students as well as parents, then perhaps you can pay the parent piece out of the program and the student piece out of your general fundraising, because that's what you raise money for. You raise to enhance the student experience at the school. So it'd be appropriate, say a speaker says, well, I charge $1,000, that I do 2 sessions for students and then I do an evening session for parents. Then break that out and say, okay, 1/3 we'll charge through the program and 2/3 we'll pay through our general school council funding if the school doesn't want to or can't fund it. So yeah, that's a really good point, is these people book up. There are known experts, and then there's people you just get online, and I had a principal say to me about Sarah Westbrook. She's one of the few you get that are really worth, you don't care what you paid. It was just really, really empowering, right? So, and he said, but on the other hand, I've had others come in here who are just awful. So really research your speakers and make sure they have good reviews. Try to ask them for a reference. So if it's not somebody you know, say, can I call a school where you spoke before and ask them for a reference so I can get a general idea of how the students responded, how the parents responded, how they broke out the billing that we just spoke about. So don't hesitate to ask for those kind of references. I mean, some you'll just know on name. But others you might want to do some research on. And I'm sure any of them that you book now for next year, if you didn't get the grant and you couldn't afford them, I'm sure they would, let you out of the commitment because they're booking up so tightly anyway. Mm-hmm. So to help facilitate some of your discussion around programs, we will post on our website a PowerPoint that I did on programs for a presentation that I did to Peel District last week. And we also have a newsletter for April, which is coming out tonight on the subject of programs. So it dwells a little deeper into the terms and conditions and ideas for different grants. And one of the things that I would like to talk about tonight is partnerships. So Liz and I were lucky enough to be involved in a school council partnership, which I coordinated. The first year we had 9 schools.
7.
We had 7, but 2 added on for the math.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we had a total of 9, and we had $9,000 to spend. And those events were attended by like 700 and some odd people. And we did an interactive math and literacy night by grade level. So not only did we have a general speaker, but then they broke into, did we have K to 8?
Yes.
I think we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So K to 8. And the teachers taught parents with one set of manipulatives, how to use them from grade kindergarten to grade 8. And they were provided with a booklet. So if it were counters, for instance, how they use counters in kindergarten might just be to separate them by color. But by grade 8, the strategy was quite different in how to use that same manipulative. So part of what we did for that grant is provide every family with a math kit. And for the literacy, every family with a book. But then through the workshops, we showed them how to use that at home as a tool to continue the education after they left the event. The second year, we had 15 schools, and we had $15,000, which made the events even more worthwhile to parents because we were able to do more. We even had Young People's Theater come in and do literacy interpretation through movement at the various grade levels, which went over really, really well for parents. So school partnerships are a big priority for me, because as we look at the have and the have-not schools, through this partnership, we were able to bridge that gap. I mean, we had one school with 57 kids in it, or 60 kids.
Yes.
Right up to a school with 600 and some odd.
Yeah.
So the experience for the school that had only 50-something kids was the same as the school that had 600 plus. So that was really wonderful to see, because they wouldn't have been able to do an event like that in that small school with $1,000. But with $15,000, when we came together, it was a wonderful event for everyone that attended. And I think, we had people from every school on the planning committee.
Yes.
And we became a family. Liz and I are close friends today. We have close friends that came from that group. That was 2 or 3 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we started 4 years ago, for sure. And did the last one 3 years ago, and we're friends today. And the schools also continue to work in partnerships, some of them. So they took that program partnership and they built it into even fundraising partnerships. So the one that had 600 students, if they were doing chocolate and getting a 40% return, and the one who had 50-something students was only getting a 10% return because they are so small, they ordered together and they all got the 40%, right? So that's how when I say we can bridge the gap, they are some ways that we can bridge the gap.
More of an equal opportunity.
Absolutely, right? And even, like an adopt a school type of thing. So the larger school adopts a smaller school and tries to be able to, share their resources, share opportunities and things like that with them. So the partnership is a very big benefit to all schools, but particularly for small schools to partner with bigger schools. In my one of my blogs I wrote on school council partnerships, I go through the steps to follow in writing a program for partnered schools, because it is a little more involved. I mean, the grant had to be approved by every school council, by every principal had to buy into the concept and sign the grants in conjunction with the school councils. You have to set up, a coordinated accounting, but it's very simple when you go to do it. It's not that complicated. But in this article called School Council Partnerships, which you can get on our website at www.parentsengagedineducation.ca, and click under blogs, and you can look for this article, which will step you through how to partner. Now, it might be a little late this year because you need approval by all the councils that you can partner, but I would suggest you start in September of next year, because it took us a few months to organize who would be part of it. And then, to get the actual, what did we want to do and the planning to write the grant. So I suggest that if you're going to do a larger partnership, that you get started early in the new year. But it's not too late to do a small partnership. And maybe you want to start with a smaller partnership of 2 schools, 3 schools. It's not too late to do that. You need to network with each other, and
maybe you can even pick the schools that are a part of your parish.
Yes.
Maybe there's 2, 3, 4 schools in a parish.
or some kind of community center that's central to you all, where you all have contact. That might be the quickest way of establishing a partnership. The alternative way is you can look at a map. I mean, we had schools from Don Mills to Port Credit, or Port Union. So, I mean, we didn't do it on boundaries. We did it based on interest of the schools. But if you want to start a small one now, get a map, see who's around you, give them a call, because maybe they're struggling to think of their program idea as well. You know, I think one of the things that always makes me wonder is if you have a hockey game, the stadium would be full of parents, moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles. When you have a school event to learn how to help your kid in math, you might get 5 families out of a big school. And to me, that's such a shame, because the team you need to be on is the education team. It's your child's team. I mean, maybe somebody will become that next all-star hockey player, but they're few and far between. And I think it really, your child needs the support they would get if they were going to be out to try and score a goal, as they are when they're going to do a test, or when they're working towards their dream in education. They need that support as much as they need you to go to a hockey game. So I really encourage parents and school councils to think about how to get parents there, and to really appeal to the parents, to let them know the benefit of what the event's about. So the benefit of what we did is that it was hands-on. It was what they were being shown was to do it at home, not just what the kids learn in the classroom, but hey, if you take this bag of math manipulatives home and this booklet, at home, you can do all these things.
And it was fun.
Yeah, it was
And
lots
that
of
book
fun.
was fun.
Yeah. So that's the other thing, it's not like we're not trying to get parents to teach their children. We're trying to get them to engage in activities.
Yeah, especially the math one was based on games. It was really fun to play with my kids.
Yeah.
And they're learning their math.
Yeah.
It was really good.
So, try to strike a chord with your community. I suggest that you survey your community and find out what are the priorities. What do they consider gaps or barriers to them engaging at school and with their child? And get the information back, so that you don't just do a grant on what the 7 people at the table think. You know your community, you get to know your community, and you look to build a bridge over the gaps that exist. So if they say, I just don't understand the curriculum, then you should think about how to do a grant that informs parents about the curriculum. Maybe you take it grade by grade, grades 1 to 3, and do 1 year, and another grade you do the next year. But that's a big barrier for parents. If it's language, then get a translator and get an interpreter in, have a presentation, and let them translate it. So everyone's included. Now everybody says to me, well, I survey and I only get 10 surveys back out of our 500 parents. So what I suggest you do is draw a raffle ticket for every child who returns that survey, and then have a class raffle out of all the kids for some sort of small prize that they'll win. Because if kids think they're going to win something, they're going to say to mom, I need that paper back, and I need it filled out. So that's something I would suggest in terms of how to get that information in. But it's important you understand your community. For sure.
And just piggybacking on that, we found that when you invite families out to an event, parents with their children, that more parents seem to come. So we incorporated, say the first couple times we did something that was more geared to parents and offered child minding. But what really got people out was if we had activities centered around like a family event. So that's what we're continuing to do. So that would be.
Yeah, and that was the same with the partnership thing. What we did was interactive. Bring your kids and sit down and work with them at each grade level and, learn, okay, this is what we're going to take home and do. So we did this game and we learned at the workshop how to do it. Now we're going to implement it and get the whole family playing. And that was the whole gist of what we did. If you're going to do like a mental health night or something maybe above kids' heads, you for sure have child minding, but maybe you want to have more than child minding, but an actual activity targeted towards the children that they can take part in. So it's a value night, not just for the parents, but for the children too. So I think that's another strategy to use. You can't pay for the children's activity, but you can pay for child minding. And I'm sure you can encourage, if you get some good child minders, to encourage them to run an activity for the kids as well. Or you have, a volunteer teacher to come in and run some math problems or something with the kids. So there's lots of ideas in terms of doing programs. I invited people to send in ideas tonight, and I want to thank Tim, who responded. I'm sorry, Tim, I don't have a last name for you. But he talked about some of the things that they had done that were successful, and he included Dr. Jean Clinton. I don't know what she speaks on because the topic isn't here, but you can look her up. Obviously, it's someone that they valued. Jump to Math is a program that you can get to come in. Excuse me. Sarah Westbrook, who we just spoke about, and Sarah is a really dynamic speaker. And the thing I liked about Sarah's presentation, which I attended just recently, was that she's a parent just like us. So when she talks about some of the pitfalls and some of the strategies, you're going, oh yeah, I did that, or yeah, I've seen that, or got that problem. So it's really, she's very down to earth, and it's easy to relate to her. Active Chefs, which focuses on nutrition from around the world and the cultures and countries that they come from. That would be very inclusive for one of the priorities that the ministry has set up, which is to be more inclusive of your diverse cultures. That'd be a great one for that. Teaching and Learning in the 21st Century with Stephen Hurley. Have you heard of him? No, I hadn't heard of him either, but obviously they did good programming for this school. Technology use by children and students or parents, and its impact on relationships as well as self-regulation, with Chris Wallen, I should have worn my glasses, or George Kouros, and a speaker called Ann Douglas on resilience in children. So, there's some of the ideas that he's used at their school, which were successful to him. In our partnership, we actually used the school board, teachers volunteered, and we got a lot of help from the math department to develop the book. And we, for literacy, we used a number of authors and Young People's Theater. And the other thing we did with each of these grants was have it offered in 8 languages. So we had interpreters there for 8 different languages. And so the materials were translated, that the translator was able to speak and include the parents in what was going on, and so that they could better understand. And that was important when you're doing an activity like this, like you're talking about a family event or a math event, is because some of the barriers for parents is their kids are going and speaking English and learning from a teacher who speaks English, but when they come home to try and engage their parents, the parents don't speak English. Mm-hmm. And so they can't engage with their kids. They're miles apart because even their child can't explain to them what's going on at school, and a teacher couldn't explain it to them. So offering translation through the grant, which you can pay for translation through the grant, or your school board may have a department that will offer it at no cost, is really, really important. The more diverse our communities become, the more important it is for us to go out of our way to be sure we communicate with them and welcome them into our school councils. So even if you had to get a translator to come to a school council meeting, or ask, if somebody wants to come and they have someone close to them who speaks English and their language, could they come and interpret for them? So it behooves the chair and the executive members to try and make everyone feel welcome and give them the tools they need to be involved. And that's true with the program. Don't just do an event for the select few that come to everything. They're not the ones you want to engage. They'll come no matter what. You want to look at who are the people who don't come and get them engaged. And I think that was one of the benefits of our partnership, is that there were so many of us involved that we all reached out to school people and parents, families. And it's much easier to reach out in a larger group than it is just at one school. So that is how what we got out of doing the partnership. But I think for me, besides the lifelong friendships we made, was that many hands made light work. There were a lot of us. So like on the night of the event, we had volunteers. I mean, every principal came, teachers came, all the committee came. So we had lots of hands-on volunteer people to make the project go, and not just two people who've always done the work, are still doing the work, who do it all the time. And the event comes and they're overwhelmed because everything's on them. So really the execution of your program should be a committed experience from your whole school council or from your partnership, if you do one. It shouldn't be a one-man show. And you can change it from being a one or two-man show by surveying your school, by finding out what the priorities are for parents. And then you can maybe recruit some of the people when you say, if you get so many people agreeing that you need mental health strategies for teens, let's say in secondary school, then you decide to do that project, go back to the people who've said, this would be a priority for me, and say, is there any way you could help us? You don't have to join the council, but could you be on the committee to help plan it, and on that evening to help execute it? Because you already know they're interested. So it's a way to reach back out to them and try to, draw them in and get them more involved in school. Because we have to appeal to people on their interest level, not ours. People don't think the same way we think, but they can bring really good ideas to the table because they don't think the way we think. I mean, we got a lot of input when we sat down to do meetings, sometimes too much input. We couldn't figure out, it took time to get a decision made. But it was a wonderful working experience. Someone brought cake or something to every meeting, and, it became a good social time as well. Is there anything you want to add about grants?
Just that the option isn't just to have one big event through the year. If you're really trying to engage your parent population, maybe you can have a couple spread throughout the year of topics that are important. That won't necessarily cost a lot of money in terms of a speaking fee. That's one thing that I would suggest is, again, it doesn't have to be one big one, and maybe there's not enough people to really help with one big one, but engage, like you said, your principal, your teachers, whatever volunteers you can get. Also, there's opportunities for a grant every year, hopefully, knock on wood. So even if, say there's 2 or 3 ideas that are being passed around the table, it's not as if, if you pick one, like the others are off, You can have a plan for the following year, especially if it involves a topic which requires a speaker that may take a long time to book. So just, plan for advance. Like we kind we look at what our options are, and we know, okay, we'll do this one this year, and then next year we'll work on something else. Usually it's the same parents that are around the table, but be open to new ideas. But it's not as if you can't have ideas 2 or 3 years down the road of what you think your school needs. Just tackle one and go from there, but at least apply.
Yeah, and I like the idea of doing more than one, because you can scaffold the learning. You can start at a basic level on something and build it. Even mental health, you can do a basic introduction to mental health and how children see things, and then build on that at the next one, and then build on it on the third. And you may be able to get an organization like Aislings or someone who can do that kind of phase-in programming as part of your program. So yeah, that's a really good idea, because engagement, people say to me, well, how do I know if I'm successful? I said, engagement is a marathon and not a sprint. I mean, if you can say, I engaged 2 more people this year who really, I know I made a difference in their involvement with their child and at school, then you've done your job. You can't engage, say, this year, if I don't engage 100 people because I'm going to work hard on it, then I consider it a failure. It's never a failure. It's your best effort. And some years it'll work like gangbusters, and there's other years when you're just going to be dragging along going, why am I doing this? Nobody cares. But you have to believe. If you believe you can make the difference, keep doing the work to make the difference. Keep engaging, because it will happen. It'll be slow, but it will happen. And knowing your community and knowing how to handle their barriers is a big part of what engaging is about. Tonight is a perfect example. We're doing Facebook Live. Why? Because if we did a program session at a school, maybe 10 of you could come because of schedules and, kids and all that. But when we do it Facebook Live, we know we have a much bigger reach, and that people can come back to this video that'll be on our website and on YouTube. And they can revisit it and go, I heard an idea while they were talking about progress, but I can't remember what it is. So they can come back and re-look at this video. And that's why we've chosen to do the Facebook Live, because we're an Ontario-wide organization, a charity. And our goal is to be available and accessible, and to include all parents in Ontario, to give them the option of tuning in for nights like tonight, when we're talking about topics that interest them. So this is our first attempt to go province-wide. We'll also maybe look at doing some webinars for training, to maybe doing some Facebook Live at our Big Dream Big event every year, where we do a school council training with one of the school boards. So we're looking at ways to reach parents on the level that they can be engaged. So parents who can't get to school because they're working 2 jobs, or the wife goes out when the husband comes in because they work different shifts to mind the kids, we're hoping that this platform gives you an opportunity to tune in and get the information, and hopefully, as we progress with these topics, makes you a valuable partner in your school council. Or, I hope, piques your interest in being part of your school council. But at the end of the day, we want to engage parents to engage with their kids. That's number 1, is supporting your child. Parents Engaged in Education has started a multi-year program, multi-year plan, to dream big. And you'll see our messaging on our products is I dream big for my child, which is the shirt I'm wearing tonight. You'll also see I dream big for my school, because we want parents to dream big for their children, to let their children know they can be anything that they want to be, that parents will support those dreams, and that you can dream big for your school to build a climate of positivity, so that instead of children hearing, this is wrong with schools, that's wrong with the ministry, this is wrong with teachers, they hear, when you come in this school, This school is all about dreaming big. So we want kids to dream big for themselves and dream big for the other kids in their school. And to that end, we have started a fundraising program for schools, not for parents engaged in education, but where schools can buy t-shirts with our Dream Big for My Child and I Dream Big for My School, water bottles, sunglasses, bands, journals, and pens with the messaging I Dream Big for My School on them. And we sell them to you for whatever it costs us. So if you buy in bulk, you save the money for buying in bulk. If we get 2 schools ordering at the same time, both of you will earn or be able to pay less because we'll be making a bigger order. But we encourage you to dream big with us, to make a difference, to look at the education system in Ontario as being one that can give our children their dreams. And, you know, I think that children today, a lot of them are affected by negativity. And at a time we want to support our children's mental health, what better thing can we give them than encouragement to dream big and to dream big for them ourselves? So if you want to know anything more about our Dream Big program, you can email dreambig@parentsengagededucation.ca. So I'm going to end tonight unless you have anything further to add.
I was just going to say that a lot of schools save their event, if they're doing one, in the spring. And, you know, a lot of things start happening in the spring. The fall, that's when parents are really eager and more likely to maybe attend something that they haven't done before. Just to throw it out there.
Especially those new parents. Who are just coming in JK, who really, you know, haven't started yet, and they're all eager to learn and to be part of the school. That's a great suggestion. We always did our events in like October, November, you know, to try and get the parents out and get started in the school year to support them. So yeah, that's a great point. So I just wanted to remind you once again that our website is www.parentsengagededucation.ca. Our mission is to provide free resources and skill building opportunities to schools. And we are here to answer your questions, to take your comments. And if you need assistance in anything, then you can contact us through the website on our Contact Us page. I get emails from school councils who are having difficulty and things like that through that link, and I try my best to help you. I've been involved for 25 years in parent engagement. I don't know everything, but between us, we put our heads together and we try to come up with an answer that, you know, hopefully can help you. And there is a lot of material on our website on ton of different subjects. So you can go under the blog button, and when you click blog, you can look up at the index and you can see the list of articles there. So you can just click on the article. Everything's free to download. So if you see a brochure there you like, if you see a newsletter you like, please by all means just download it free. If you'd like to receive our newsletter direct to your mailbox, like I said, this month it will be on programs. We have regular contributors Sarah Westbrook and Paul Davis contribute each month to our newsletter. Then again, you can go on to the Contact Us button and just sign up for a subscription to the newsletter. And also we will put this, as I said, on our website tonight. And we already have this article on school council partnerships. So even if you're not going to do one this year, I really encourage you to download this article and start the thought process for the next grant opportunity. The other thing that I want to encourage you to do, so Adrian doesn't get mad at me, is to share our information. So when you're on a blog or you see a newsletter that you really like, please share it with others. Okay, that's why we do the work as a charity, to get as much impact as we can in the province. So please share it on whatever format you would like to. And that makes you part of our team to make a difference. Because we believe when you dream big, together we can make a difference. Thank you and good night. And I'll see you at our next Facebook Live. Thank you.